So what you're going to need to make this apron is a set of coordinating dish towels or tea towels. I got this set of 3. There's this one that's kind of got appliques on it, a patterned one, and just this checkered one. And then you need some wide ribbon that doesn't have wire in it. This is 1.5 inches, but you could use 2 inches as well. Now the important thing is the dish towel that you want to be your main part of the apron, the pattern needs to kind of go horizontally. Most of them go vertically because that's how the towels will hang. So like this one you couldn't use as a main one because it would be sideways. So I'm using this as my accent one. I've actually already started to cut it up. I decided to use the checkered one as my main one since it looks the same horizontally or vertically. Now this part I did already, but I will show you how to do it. I just put some pleats along the long side of it so that it'll kind of sit nicer when you have it tied around. And this part, the stitching here, is going to be covered up, so don't worry about that. It's just, I just stitched them a little bit to hold them in place. So in order to create the pleats, the first thing you want to do is fold it in half so that this is the long side. And so we know that this, there we go, this is our center. So then I just kind of pinch it so that there's about 1 inch or so worth of fabric past my thumb. Well, like a 1/2 inch on each side. And then you just flatten it out like that. And then you can just kind of fold each side out so you kind of get this little pleat. And then I just pinned it in place and stitched along the top. So what you end up with looks like that. Once I got the center one in place, I just took the end and folded it into the center pleat and repeated the same thing here. And then I did it with that side. So what you're left with is 3 pleats. So then I took my coordinating towel here, which I wanted to use to kind of be the band at the top. And this with the pleats, my bottom part of the apron is narrower at the top, but it's still just a little bit wider than that dish towel is with the pattern going the correct way. So in order to make it wide enough, I took the strip that I used, or that I cut, and I undid this hem right here because it's actually double folded. So I ripped that seam out. It was left looking like this. You can even still see the crease because I haven't been able to iron it. It was folded like this. I ripped out the seam. It was like this. And I just kind of kept the crease from the raw edge and just stitched up that, so it just made it that little bit, that 1/2 inch wider on that side. And you could use a machine to stitch this. I just don't have one. And I did the same thing on the other side. It was stitched up like this, and I just ripped open the seam, which is actually pretty easy to do once I cut it because it just kind of unraveled itself. And then I just left the raw edge. And then the last little prep thing I did was I wanted my apron to have a pocket. So I cut this little square out. And actually what I did was I cut it from a bottom corner so that this seam, this hem, I'll show you from the back, this hem and this hem were already done because that was just the finished edge of the tea towel. So then all I had to do was fold up this side and hand stitch it, and then I folded down the top and hand stitched it across. My next step is just to iron everything out. I need to get these creases out of here. Also going to get the creases out of this, especially here at the edges. And then I'm just going to press my seams before I stitch them to make them a little easier. So I'm going to fold this right, you can see I already started to crease it, but right there. And that's just because I want to keep this part that says I love cupcakes. But I'm just going to iron it, fold it in half. You know, make sure your edges are lined up so that your line is nice and straight all the way across. And then I'm just going to press up a hem at either side. So I'll press that up, and then I'll press this underneath side up so that there's no raw edges hanging out. And when you do this, you just want to make sure that it's wide enough for the ribbon, because the ribbon is going to come through there. Okay, so I've ironed my apron and ironed creases in the waistband. So now it lays nice and flat and has some hems. So now it's time to pin it. Just lay the apron in it, getting it as centered as possible. It's still not quite 100% long enough, but it is close enough, and the ribbon will cover that little bit of ends, so I'm not too worried about it. I'm trying to get this thick hem where there's all this layers of fabric above this so that it's not too bunchy. Actually, before I pin it, I'm going to run the ribbon through just so I don't have to do that later. And now I'm going to pin on the ends. This is pretty stiff fabric, so I don't think it'll need a lot of pins, especially since I'm hand stitching it. So I'm just going to pin one at each end. Okay, so I have 3 pins up in the top. I made sure that the ribbon wasn't attached anywhere so that I can slide freely. And then if you want to add a pocket to yours, you can pin that down as well, just on these 3 sides. And then I'm just going to do a back stitch around the pocket and around along the top.